We are live.
Yep, shows it's recording.
Yeah, great. Okay, this is exciting. Uh,
Yeah, I've never done anything like this before, so this is a first for me.
yeah, I think it's going to be awesome. And thanks for being the first one to have the courage to do it. I appreciate that.
No problem. Thanks for offering. Nobody in the community has ever offered anything like this that I know of.
Yeah, I think it'll be a good way to help us connect with each other and raise some awareness.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, do you want to tell me how did you actually find out you had ADHD?
Well, that's I actually found it out twice. The first time was when I was about 8 years old. I was diagnosed, and because I'm the ADHD inattentive, so they
Mm,
diagnosed me as ADD because I wasn't hyperactive very much as a child.
yeah,
And I went on probably another couple of years. It wasn't until I was about 12 or so until I went on medication. My parents weren't keen on medicating me uh, right away. Uh, Mostly, I think the reason was because of that. They weren't really educated about what ADHD truly is and what it really means. They were they were told that it problems and that's it. So that's all that they were concerned about. I wasn't having anger management problems, or I wasn't acting out or anything like
yeah.
that. So I didn't have to quote unquote fit. You know,
Yeah, that's really interesting. Because I am the same as you. I've got ADD, the inattentive subtype, but I wasn't aware until well into adulthood. Time is lagging quite a bit.
I think the lag is strong with this one.
8 hours difference is gonna do it.
That and I apologize. I don't have the best internet. I'm actually using my phone as a hotspot because that's the only internet that I have where I live. I live way out in the country where there is no cable internet. There's no The only thing we have is satellite internet, and it's worse than using your phone.
So, what medication are you currently taking?
Well, right now I'm taking Vyvanse, 60 milligrams.
Oh yeah,
That's the third medication that I've taken since being re-diagnosed as an adult.
yeah,
Um, I I started I started taking Adderall first of all when I back about 2 years ago, and Adderall worked for me for a while. I did have some negative side effects. I was very irritable and
yeah.
very antsy. Uh, just I felt like a caged animal.
Wow.
Luckily, that didn't. It only lasted about 2 weeks, and then I started tolerating it better, and
Yeah,
then moved on to the extended release of Adderall, and that worked great for a while. But then after a few months, it felt like it stopped working for me. I didn't feel like it was helping me out as much, so my doctor switched me to Ritalin, and we repeat the process of going through immediate release first at low dose, and then stepping up to a higher dose of immediate release, and then you go to extended release, and then once again that worked for a few months. And the only thing that with Ritalin, it worked, but it didn't work long enough, and so I was only getting 6, maybe 8 hours, and my days run very, very long.
yeah,
I usually only get about 4 hours of sleep, 4 to 5 hours of sleep if I'm lucky. And
Wow, that's hardly
I,
anything.
yeah, I know. So my days run very long, and so I'll be trying to do something later in the day, like working on my videos and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it's I have nothing left. My medication's
Mm.
worn off. So I wanted something that was longer acting, and that's when my doctor prescribed me Vyvanse, which is lasting me about close to 12 hours, which is really
Yeah,
good. Um,
that's good.
I would like, yeah, I would like more. There's another drug that's on the market called Mydayis, and
Oh,
yeah, I don't know if you've heard of it.
no, never.
Okay, yeah, it's new, and
Yeah.
it's part of the amphetamine drug, so it's similar to Adderall and Vyvanse, and
Yeah.
it's got reports of lasting up to 15 hours,
Wow.
and I that would be a dream for me,
Yeah. Especially if you're having a long day,
but my
because
insurance doesn't cover it, so
yeah, in the UK we only have, I believe, Ritalin and Concerta. We don't have access legally to. I don't think we have Vyvanse. We definitely don't have Adderall. It's illegal. So I'm limited to those two
really,
things, and yeah, and Concerta, I totally relate to the whole agitation, and it can come with anxiety with that kind of stimulants, and it can definitely interfere with sleep. So I always have to take it very early in the morning because it can definitely cause insomnia for me.
yeah, it's not a fun feeling when you're awake and you can't go to sleep. You're not tired.
Mm. Because I used to be on the non-stimulant called Strattera. I don't know if you've ever tried that one. That's
No, I
very
haven't
unique,
tried.
but that one is it's kind of like an antidepressant, and it
Right.
works on the norepinephrine system in the brain, and it you don't get the same agitation as such, but you definitely sort of get flattened out, and it's kind of like a mood stabilizer. But I didn't really like that because
Oh,
of just it sort of made me feel like a zombie.
oh yeah. When I was young, I don't remember the very first medication I took. I have a feeling it's atomoxetine, which I believe is conservative, and it did the same thing to me. It just I, yeah, I was like a zombie, and
Yeah,
my mom didn't have that at all. She took me off of it immediately and then I went to Ritalin, and that that kind of worked, but I never got onto the extended release Ritalin when I was young.
mm,
Um, we only used the instant release, and it it's a shame because what I was alluding to before, my since my family wasn't very well educated, the doctors didn't educate them very well
yeah,
on what to expect with ADHD. I feel like I kind of got, passed over in that regard, that I didn't
mm,
I didn't get to maintain my treatment through high school, which I failed high school, which wasn't. It's just it's kind of a shame sometimes that back then doctors weren't educating their their patients very well.
yeah. There's so much ignorance towards ADHD. I mean, people still to this day believe that it's not real and it's just a discipline problem, which is BS because they'll never understand really.
Right. Yeah, and that's a quite a shame. Like you said, people that won't allow themselves to be educated on something that is a very real condition that has some profound effects on people's lives. It's interesting that it's said that it's the most well-researched psychiatric condition in psychology. Yet, for it being that, the awareness and the significance placed on it is very minimal,
Yeah,
which is just sad.
definitely.
I'm studying right now. I'm in the process of making a video series about how ADHD affects your life expectancy. And it's based
Oh,
on, I don't know if you're familiar with Dr. Russell Barkley, but he made
yes, rings a bell.
okay,
Yeah,
he's probably one of the most leading experts on ADHD. And
yeah.
just last year, uh, he gave a speech about how ADHD affects life expectancy, and the sum of
Mhm.
it is that it takes more years off of your life than some of the top leading health concerns combined. So
Wow.
obesity, yeah, obesity, smoking, uh, non-exercise, uh, things like that. It's about twice as bad as those things combined, which, it, it says a lot.
Yeah, I think there's a big grain of truth to that because obviously things like impulsivity is going to lead us to make bad choices. We're going to have poor self-control. And I mean, I know from experience myself, I've been in some very hairy situations growing up just because I just didn't think about the consequences. And I'm pretty lucky to be here, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, absolutely. It's amazing. They say that we're twice as likely to we have double the mortality rate. Being ADHD, we have double the mortality of the general population before adolescence. And that's primarily due to accidental.
that's pretty scary, isn't it?
It really is. It moves far beyond just a psychiatric. It can really be looked at as a public health condition, but it's not.
Mm.
Getting people to see it that way is like pulling teeth.
Yeah, I think they prefer to see us as just irresponsible by choice, but it's really kind of a it's a neurological issue where the connectivity doesn't quite fire as quickly as the average person. So that's why we don't map things out mentally. We just take one
Right.
route without actually scanning for all the pros and cons first. So there's definitely huge risk factors.
Yeah. You act without thinking, and bad things can happen.
I noticed one of your videos talks about that as well, right? The health problems, things like that can come with not paying attention.
Yeah. I think one of the videos that I made was just about some of the conditions that people go through, and and yeah, some of those are acting without thinking.
Have you ever had cognitive behavioral therapy for your ADHD?
I'm actually going through that right now. I started that about a year ago, and it's
Oh, okay.
helped. Yeah, it's
Great.
helped, but not. It's still not as profound as I was hoping for. So I don't
Really?
know if that's just because of the therapist that I have, or if it's my reception to the therapy, because it could be either or both, really.
Yeah. Because I've never actually got therapy specifically for ADHD, but I have gone in the past for things like depression and anger, like
Mm,
anger management. So, but at the time I wasn't aware. That was several years ago. But it's when you that day when you finally figure it out, it just makes so much sense, right?
it the day that I started researching adult ADHD, because to give a little bit of a backstory, from when I was young, I stopped taking my medication around 14 or 15, I said. And that's due to the fact that my family, we were told that I would outgrow it. And that's about the time that that would happen. So
That's so
that's when I
typical.
stopped taking my medication. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I went on through life completely not only unmedicated, but the worst, what I think is the worst thing is unknowing. I
Mm.
really am a strong believer that knowledge over anything, knowledge and understanding of this condition is the number one thing that we need, even probably even more so than treatment, because treatment doesn't
Definitely.
fix everything. So just being knowledgeable about what this condition does and how it can affect you. And I didn't know any of that until I was until about 2 years ago. And I'm going to be 34 coming up here this August. And, and I went through, you know, the beginning of my adult life just completely unaware of what was going on, and
Mm.
even worse, thinking that I was just a screw up and
Oh yeah.
that everything that I did was wrong. And really, as a child, one of the things they were surprised about with me is my self-esteem was still, but that only lasts so long, because after a while I didn't need people telling me that I'm doing stuff wrong, or that I'm stupid, or that these negative things. After a while, you see it for yourself. You recognize that you're not you're not at the same level as your peer, and you recognize that you're not doing the things that you know you should do, and you have no explanation as to why. And the only thing that does
Definitely.
come up as an explanation is that you call yourself stupid, or lazy, or all these negative things. And so, yeah, I went through my entire beginnings of my adult life thinking that way, and that led to a lot of depression and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's a good point because I feel very I can really relate to that because all my early adolescence, sorry, um, I could always I always sensed that there was something off about me in comparison to my peers, but I could never really pinpoint exactly what it was. But I could just tell I had issues with paying attention sometimes and socializing. There was just something different, you know. So and that just not knowing is definitely a big hindrance on your life because you don't have access then to the treatments, and as you say, the medication alone isn't going to be effective. And that's what I do with my channel. I try to give people ideas of how to actually apply techniques all alongside their meds, because that's really the key,
Right.
I believe. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's a dual treatment. You have to go at it dual treatment, because just behavioral modification in and of itself, it's not going to do much for somebody that's still highly impulsive and doesn't think things through and doesn't have the conscientiousness.
Mm.
Um, and it's also not going to help you if all you can do is focus better, but you don't have any skills to manage all the other issues that medication doesn't fix.
Yeah. That Russell Barkley guy, I've actually got one of his audiobooks, and I love audiobooks. That's the best way
Really?
for me to educate myself. I don't know if you could see it clearly. I'll show it to the camera. It's Taking Charge of Adult ADHD. Can you see that?
Oh, I'll have to get that.
It's on Audible. It's a great app, and you can just really teach yourself about how you work and how to manage yourself. That's a big inspiration for me. That's why I started the channel, really.
That's interesting you mentioned that. I just recently got into audiobooks. I just discovered using audiobooks because I'm not a reader. Reading is just something that I I'd never been able to do, and even since I've been medicated, I have no desire to pick up a book to even try.
Mm,
And that I
yeah.
don't know if that's just because I've had a lifetime of telling myself that I can't read, or what
Yeah.
it is, but I just don't have any desire to pick up a book. But audiobooks, I can listen to those and I can follow along with them just fine. I have my attention problems listening to them, which the last book that I read or listened to was from Dr. Ned Hollowell, his book, Driven to Distraction,
Ah, yeah,
which
good of that.
paints an excellent picture. Yeah, it paints an excellent picture of what ADHD looks like for mostly in adulthood.
Is that an audiobook?
Yes, it is. And
Ah,
there's
I'll check it
actually
out.
there's actually two of them. There's the full version and then there's an abridged version. And when I first got it, I accidentally got the abridged version, which is only like 3 hours. But
Mm.
the full version is like 13 hours. So I
That's a long
missed out
time.
on a lot the first time. So I went back and re-listened to the full version, and there's a lot of good information in there. The next one
Yeah.
I'm gonna get is the second book after that, called Delivered from Distraction, and so that I'm looking for, my credit
Yeah.
comes up. That's what I'm gonna get.
Yeah, I mean, some of these books are pretty long, and you think, oh, 12 hours. So how am I going to manage that? But what I do is I just every day or before bed, I set a time just to have, say, like half hour or an hour just to listen to it, and that way, over the course of a week or two, I can get it done, and I've achieved it then.
Mm.
So just little by little, I think helps.
Yeah, absolutely. See, I'm fortunate in this regard that my job allows me to listen to audiobooks constantly, which I'm a truck driver. And so I'm constantly on the
Right.
road. And so I can listen to, I can knock out an entire audiobook in one day if it's short enough.
Yeah, that's the perfect opportunity. I try to do the same here and there when I'm driving, or
Yeah.
like if I'm just on the go somewhere. But sometimes I find, depending on the environment, if it's really busy, so even then I can't actually focus. I'll hear the words, but it'll just go through one ear out the other because of everything else. So I do need that quiet, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. Some people do. I feel like I'm fortunate that I don't have, I never had problems driving, so my distractibility has never been an issue for me while I'm driving. Which I'm understanding that that could be a huge problem for a lot of time.
Do you have to pay insurance if you have ADHD on driving? Because here in the UK, we have to let the DVLA know that we have the disability, and we have to pay like this insurance policy on top. It's expensive. I think it's about £1,000.
Wow, wow, that's interesting. Uh, Here in this, so we don't have to are more prone to accidents. But that's interesting that they would recognize ADHD, so it has yet they don't allow all the medications available to somebody. It's quite a conundrum.
Yeah, it's not really that fair, is it? Because I think if we had a bit more help from the pharmaceutical and the NHS, then we might have a bit more less. We might be less of a liability on the road. Because I mean, several years ago, when I was about 18, when I passed, I did actually crash into somebody because I wasn't paying attention. So it just goes to show there is some
Oh
truth
wow,
there. But obviously, I'm much better now because you learn from your mistakes. But
that's yeah, that's just really interesting how that plays out.
you have inattentive ADHD, right? The subtype.
Yeah, yes.
So, what do you struggle with the most in your daily life, do you think?
Oh well, currently the thing that's really got me uh, wishing I could fix is my motivation. Definitely have motivational issues getting started on projects, even if time management is a huge. Like I was a little late coming here just because I was still getting ready,
Right.
even though I woke up with more than enough time to get ready. I still got here, the last minute, and then I had to still set up. So, I definitely struggle with time management. Then there's there's one other thing that I struggle with, and I forgot what it my mind's just not working the way it should right now. But definitely motivation and time management are a big issue for me.
I think that's pretty much the same for me as well, because I have the desire to actually do things, but doing it is a whole different ball game. So yeah, another feeling. I'm not on my meds today either. Are you on them? Because I kind of just haven't got much energy. I've just had coffee.
Yeah, I am actually. I actually took 2 days off of vacation. This comes in the wake of I'm not sure if my Vyvanse is actually really doing much for me anymore because I'm still struggling with some of these issues so much. And I don't know about you, but for me, I never had that that veil lifting off experience, that everyone talks about how it's like putting on glasses when you couldn't see well all of your life, and you first
Mm,
put on glasses and now everything's clear. I never really had that moment of clarity, and I don't know if it's because I never found the right medication, or if I'm one of the people that doesn't respond well to medication. I tolerate the medication relatively fine, but not everyone has a complete turnaround on it. And I'm wondering if I'm
yeah.
one of those people. So because of that, I was wondering if my Vyvanse was even working. So I talked to
Mm,
my doctor, and she suggested, uh, taking a couple of days break, see how I
yeah.
perform, see what areas are affected without the medication, and then take the medication again and see where, if anything improves.
Yeah.
And I had 1 day off work and 1 day on work without the medication, and the the day off work went it didn't but when I went to work, I noticed that I had severe problems with sleepiness,
Right.
um, and I was low energy.
Mm,
And the second day I tried going off of it for a second day, but I was actually getting tired to where it was impeding my driving. I said, I can't have that. So I went
yeah.
ahead and I took my medication with me just in case something like that happened.
Mm,
And so I had a backup plan. I didn't, it was just, oh, I'm going to tough it out and see how the day. So
yeah. It can be
I
very
went ahead
dangerous.
and took, yeah. So I went ahead and the second day, I went ahead and took my medication probably into my day because I was struggling with sleepiness, and instantly, when as soon as it kicked in, I was alert, and so I
Mm,
feel like I'm just have a baseline of the best I can be is alert, instead of
uh,
just dead time.
you just need to keep a giant flask of coffee. That's all. That'll do the job.
Right here.
Yeah. I've definitely experienced some tolerance build up with Concerta. Um,
Yeah.
at one point, I just found myself abusing them really because I had like assignments to do for uni, and I've just felt they weren't really effective. The more I took them, the less of an effect I had. So I just, I'd had one time where I took like two in a day, which is totally unorthodox, and it's pretty stupid. But I think that's the risk, especially with the stimulants, is you can become kind of addicted to them, and that's why I think having a break for maybe a few days or even up to a week can benefit you, because I mean it can be
Mhm.
kind of poisonous to the mind.
Yeah, I don't know how I think about that. I think about it not so much in terms of an addiction as I think that there's a difference between an addiction and a dependence.
Yeah,
And it would imply that you don't have any control over whether or not you take them. If you think about
yeah,
a,
it's
a
more of
drug
a
addict,
dependence.
they, yeah, so when you look at a drug addict, they're in pain, they're in discomfort, they're delirious when they don't have the drugs that their body is craving. Whereas for us, if we can go off our meds anytime, we may not like the result of it, but we can willfully go off of our medication. So I think that's a big distinction between addict and dependent, where we do become dependent on them because they help us function the way that we're supposed to.
Mm.
It would be like, uh, somebody that has a prosthetic leg, they would become dependent on that prosthetic because without it, they have to hobble around,
Mm.
and that's no way to live.
Yeah, I think you're right in the that's a better word, is the dependence, and I think it's probably more accurate to say that we can become dependent on the idea of that these drugs can help us be a better version of who we are, and it
Right.
can lead into a bit of a negative mindset, but it
Hmm.
just needs to the attitude needs to change. That's all, I think.
Right. Yeah. I do feel like there's too much of a stigma around the medication, even in the community. You hear people all the
Yeah,
time. I don't know if you're in the Facebook communities or not, but
I
there's a
am.
couple of
Yeah,
them that I'm part of. Okay. And, some people will say, are there any alternatives other than stimulants? And they'll, make it adamant that they don't want to even try a stimulant I assume, because of what they've heard about them, the negative things
yes.
they've heard about them, when in reality it could be exactly what they need, and because of their fear, their undue fear, they're they're denying themselves a treatment that could be a godsend to them.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the media does taint the image of these drugs, because especially drugs like Ritalin. I think in here in the UK, there's quite this idea that it's like cocaine, and
Mhm.
I mean, even though it is possible to become dependent on them, I think if you're guided properly by your doctor or therapist, then yeah, it's gonna be fantastic and really life changing. So
Right.
it all depends on the attitude, but we don't have society on our side at the moment, and that's what needs to change.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's kind of my hope for channels like yours and mine, that we can spread awareness about about how this affects people and what the different outcomes can be, treated versus untreated, and just getting that knowledge out there.
Yeah, and I think these Facebook groups are going to be a big part of that as well, because the nice thing about social media is that it does help to bring people together, and I think especially YouTube is going to be really revolutionary. So little by little, I think progress will come over time.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many times I've been moved to tears just knowing that I'm not the only person that struggles in the way that I do.
Yeah, it can be very powerful when you realize you're not alone. It
Right.
just makes you feel like life is not that bad.
Absolutely.
So you said that you first got diagnosed at 8. What happened that took so long for you to get started the treatment so much later?
Um, I think that it was because my mother has always been very wary of medication and becoming dependent on it. She's the type of person that if she's in pain, she'll take half of the recommended dose, and only when she's just can't take the pain anymore because she doesn't want to become addicted to the pain medication. She's not against medication altogether, so that's good, but she was thinking that, well, maybe there's other alternatives. Maybe uh, I remember when I was younger, I was put in remedial classes for math and English, and I think that the idea was to see if I did any better in a more focused remedial class as opposed to being in the general classroom. And when that didn't pan out and I was still struggling, then they put me on the medication.
Yeah, I was put in remedial classes as well, just because of the attention span. And of course, I'm about 3 years younger than you, and even
Mm,
back in the 90s, it just nobody had any idea of what this thing was. And my parents, my mother said she was considering getting me tested, but um,
mm.
for whatever reason, she just didn't do it. I think because back then there was much more of a stigma, and people didn't believe it. Most people didn't believe it.
Oh, absolutely. And it's a shame the way that it's been presented. It's got this light on it that either it doesn't exist, or people think that it's some kind of a new condition that's only been brought up in the past couple decades. When in reality, you know it's been with us since the beginning of time. And the only
Mm.
thing is we didn't have a definite name for it. We just called them bad kids.
There's some superpower hidden in ADHD, I think, where you can get obsessively into something, I've noticed.
Mm-hmm. See, I've thought about that. I've thought about this long and hard, and I guess I have a little bit of a different take on it. That ADHD, I don't see it as a superpower. I do see it as a hint, but that's not to say that people that tend to have ADHD have some amazing gifts. And I don't think that it's because of the ADHD. I think that they're just gifted people who happen to have ADHD. And if anything, ADHD hinders those gifts. Now you're referring to like the hyperfocus uh, state where we can just get locked onto something and nothing else can distract us from it. And that I can see where that can be seen, but it's kind of like a superpower that takes a toll on you as a time. Are you familiar with Dragon Ball Z at all?
Yeah, yeah, I used to watch that as a kid. I loved it.
Love it. In fact, I don't know if you can see, but I saw this one day and I couldn't
Ah,
help
Senzu. Nice.
myself. But it's kind of like it's like the Kaioken. It it
Right.
it can increase your power and your focus, but it takes a toll on you. It'll take a toll on your body because you forget to eat, you forget to sleep, you forget to go to the bathroom,
Yeah, I
or
totally see that.
you get to or you neglect other important things in your life, like your like if you are in a relationship, you'll ignore your significant other when they're trying to get your attention.
Mm.
And uh, people ignore their children when they're needing something in the right setting at the right time. I believe, yeah, it can be effective, but it's far too often it comes at the detriment of something else. And in reality, hyper focus, I don't think is so much of a hyper. Regular people feel like when they get into what's, but there's a time and a place for that. And not being able to break yourself out of that when that's where the impairment is.
That's a very interesting take, and I thoroughly agree. I think there is a right place and a right time. Obviously, when you have other responsibilities, it can definitely distract you from the things that need to be done. But I think it's all about managing the time and dedicating a time to doing something that you can hyper focus on, so that other areas of your life aren't neglected. Because, as you say, you can turn into a Super Saiyan and you just get stuck into it, you're hyper focused. But it's just about being careful how you disperse that energy, I think, and selecting ways to disperse it so it doesn't overtake other areas and dominate your life.
Brings up the issue that's generally what we have trouble doing in the first place is.
So, with the Vyvanse, do you think you're going to stick with that, or do you think it's not quite working how you'd like it to, and you're thinking of anything else?
Well, I'm considering going back and trying that out. And one of the reasons why is when I stopped taking Adderall, I stopped because I didn't feel it working anymore. And I came across some information that said that there's two different types of response to the medications. There is a physical response and there's a cognitive response. And what you're looking for is the cognitive response with as little of the physical response as possible. And so I don't know about you, when you take your Concerta, um, you can feel it kick in.
Mm.
You can actually feel your body start to become a little bit more alive. Your mind becomes more alive, and I stopped feeling that feeling of energy that I got from the atom, but I wasn't paying attention to the cognitive side. I was still getting benefits there, being able to tell my thoughts and things, making noticing if those were still not. So I'm curious to go back at all and see. But in the meantime, we're still working on the Vyvanse. We'll see how that goes.
Okay. Yeah, I totally relate to the physical reaction to the meds because with Concerta, I definitely feel like this come up, and it's almost like a high, and it's
Yeah,
you can feel it physically, and you get the cold, clammy hands, and you start to
yeah,
feel very awake, wide-eyed, and it's I think some days it doesn't quite work as well as others. I'm not sure why, but some days it can be more of a physical reaction, and I'm still not able to concentrate as well as I'd like, because I think Concerta has this ability to overstep the mark sometimes, and the anxiety can keep you from being sharp or focused on one thing that you'd like. So it's definitely has some adverse
yeah.
reactions. But I don't know
Now,
what Adderall is going to be like in comparison, because that's an amphetamine-based one.
well, right. And really the effects that you feel of them aren't that much different because they're all stimulants, so they're all going to provoke a lot of the same physical reactions, heightened heart rate, a little bit higher blood pressure. Sometimes that breeds irritability and restlessness if you don't have anything to put your focus towards.
Mm,
So between Adderall and Concerta, they're they're they act on the brain a little bit differently because one is methylphenidate, one is an amphetamine. So they act on the brain slightly different. I'm trying to remember how my doctor explained it to me, but Adderall has basically more points of effectiveness than Ritalin or Concerta, because Concerta is methylphenidate, same as Ritalin, really. Uh, there was something that I saw in one of your videos that I found interesting. is that you would sometimes take half of the pill of Concerta, and I'm wondering how that works.
Yeah, that was not really a smart thing for me to do.
Okay.
Um, it's you're not supposed to do it, and I really should have spoken to my doctor about it first. But as we do, sometimes we just do a Google search and we think, oh, it'll be fine. But
Yeah.
it did kind of work, but I had much worse side effects. I'd have
Yeah.
I wouldn't be as focused because obviously it's half the dose, but along with it, if you break Concerta in half, you have two parts of the drug, and one it's made up of two different sections with a time release component and the other with a stimulant. And I think if you break them in half, it can interfere with the chemical reactions of the
Yeah.
compounds, and it's just not a smart thing to do. So now I just take the full dose,
Good.
and if I ever
I
want
was
to go
the
down,
reason I was,
I just take I just ask for a smaller dose from now on.
yeah, I was curious about that because my understanding of Concerta and how it works is that it's known as a pump, and it actually has uh, a mechanism inside of it pushes the medication in a time release fashion, and it's
Mm.
done with with your digestive system. It absorbs moisture from your digestive system, and that causes something inside of it to expand, and then that expansion it's like a plunger, and it
All right.
pushes that medication out in a time release fashion. So I was wondering how that with you cutting it up because that would affect how it releases on the time release function.
Yeah, I mean, for all I know, cutting it in half, you've got one side of it that's exposed and open because you've broken it. So I don't know, it might have had a much
Right.
worse effect because you're essentially releasing uh, an open capsule into the bloodstream. So I imagine it's not going to be good for your heart and your stomach, especially because with Concerta, I'm supposed to be taking it with
Right.
food, and I've had times where I've just taken it on empty stomach and not eaten till lunch
Yeah.
maybe. And I've definitely noticed it causes
Yeah.
acid reflux, and it's not good. It does something to the stomach.
Yeah. I never had any stomach issues. Some people do. I've never had any stomach issues with the with my medication. Uh, but yeah, definitely. I like how you said if you don't. The thing is, if you don't eat breakfast along with your medication, you're liable not to eat anything until, like you said,
Hmm.
lunchtime or later.
Yeah, and I've noticed that eating actually takes the edge off the anxiety for some reason.
Oh,
I think it just slows down the release even more, so you just don't get that spike and you don't get half the anxiety from my experience.
oh, that's good. Well, I was curious when you were talking about your your parents. I was just wondering if you happened to notice which one of your parents do you think that you get your ADHD from, or if any of them.
That's a very interesting question. I'm glad you brought that up. Um, I definitely think there is something in my family, in my mother's side, because I've
Mm-hmm.
noticed, and I don't know whether it's because of my bias. Maybe I'm looking to find it in somebody else, so I'm confirming, oh, yes, they must have it. But I could be
Yeah.
wrong. But I definitely have a few family members who are a bit, how can I say, scatty or batshit crazy. um,
Yeah.
but just because they do display some traits of hyperactivity and impulsivity, and there's also a bit of alcoholism and reckless behavior
Mm,
in my family as well. So,
yeah.
I mean, I have a cousin who is he's got autism and ADHD,
Mm,
so it's definitely in the family.
yeah. Yeah. Well, it's definitely comes from somewhere. It's just sometimes we're not sure if it's one of our parents. For me, it was definitely without a doubt my mother. my mother was the one that recognized it first, and she recognized it in me, even though she didn't know what ADHD was. She just recognized that I was a lot like her, even though
Right.
I would say that she's far more of the hyperactive type. She's far more impulsive and just
Yeah.
she's out there sometimes, you know. I do have some suspicions of my father, who, if he does have it, would be far more the inattentive type, because he's a lot more quiet, laid back. But just hearing some of the stories of him when he was a child, you know, he didn't do well in school. You know, he was always off, you know, doing stupid things as a kid. You know, and some of that, it's hard to decipher between what's, you know, what's just being a young dumb kid and what's having ADHD. But uh, what also makes me think about it is my brother, who, my half brother from my dad's previous marriage. He
Right.
for sure, without a doubt in my mind, has ADHD. But he's complicated with severe anxiety.
Yeah. I think my. It's funny you said that because I think my father's displays some ADD traits, um, because he's not hyperactive at all, but he's definitely lives in his own little bubble, and he always has, and he's quite bad with people. He's not very good at relating to others. I mean, that could just be the way he is, but I think once you start trying to look for symptoms in other people, you can easily be led astray with your own suspicions.
Hmm. It is really easy to see that in other people because the symptoms and the traits of ADHD are things that everybody experiences and goes through, just
Mm,
at times. You know, for instance,
yeah,
working memory problems are something that everybody has from time to time. We've all forgotten our keys. We've all forgotten our wallets. We've
yeah,
all gone into another room and didn't know why we went in there. But the frequency and the impact is what makes the difference between, you know, just a normal brain fart and
yeah.
ADHD. When you become known as the forgetful guy, sorry, hi Katie.
Hi, Kitty.
Do you have cats or pets?
uh, I used to a long time ago. They all passed away now, sadly.
I'm sorry to hear that.
It's fine.
But we, you know, we all have a lot of those same traits. But with ADHD, you definitely you become known as like the forgetful person. You
Mm,
know, you when you're known as the person that's always showing up late no matter what,
yeah,
that shows an impairment, and that's when you start looking to see if, okay, is there an explanation for this? You know.
mhm. Yeah. I don't know about you, but I had a few people, usually co-workers, telling me, complaining that, oh, why, you're always late, or you're very forgetful, aren't you? So
Yeah.
I have a backlog of history, I think. So on the
Yeah.
day of the diagnosis, it's like, yeah, it makes sense now. Because
Absolutely.
I lost about 30 jackets in my life, not an
Yeah.
exaggeration.
Yeah. I would always forget to bring my jacket home, or
Mm,
you know, leave my backpack at school when, especially when I was really young. You know, I was really bad about
yeah.
that all the time.
It's worse when you're growing up, I think, until the hormones level out. Because I think the
Yeah.
late teens, you just so, you got all the testosterone and you kind of go off the rails, I think.
Yeah. Absolutely. So you don't strike me as somebody. You mentioned that you had sometimes problems with anger, and you don't strike me as somebody who would have that. What was that like for you?
Well, I don't know, maybe I just hide it well. But I'm not the same person as I used to be. Um,
Yeah.
I think with just age, I've mellowed out a bit. But I think back in the day, I didn't really understand the way I worked, and I got too wound up over things that didn't really matter,
Oh
and
yeah,
and I made decisions that caused it in the first place. When really, I've learned over time to just get rid of things that are toxic in your life, and you just won't have that problem anymore. Really.
yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I know that I had problems with frustration was my problem, and I would get, like you said, worked up over something. You kind of make a mountain out of a molehill.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah,
I was a bit of a drama king, if anything, because I just,
yeah,
it's just no point. You can't change the world. You just got to do your own thing and go your own way and be happy with what you like.
yeah. But of course, you don't get, like you said, you don't start realizing that until you become, past your adolescence and into early
Yeah.
adulthood. You start to realize those things.
Yeah, exactly. Just learning to take a different approach to all of life's ups and downs, and just being more accepting. You're so much more happy when you just accept and let things be. And I think obviously therapy is that did definitely help with that. So I mean, I
Mm,
haven't been in therapy for many years now, but I'm at a place in my life where I don't really feel like I need it, but I suppose I'm quite fortunate, but it's always good to talk. This is why I'm enjoying talking to people like yourself, so we can at least be on the same page.
right. Yeah. I wonder if anytime in the future, if in the UK, if they would ever consider another medication. Have you heard anything about that?
Not really. I mean, on those ADHD Facebook groups, they have posted a few things about this new drug. I can't remember the name,
Mm,
but I'm not sure if it's in America only. Probably because we're so strict over here, it's unbelievable. We're not even allowed guns. So
yeah,
uh, who knows? I mean, I don't know if I'd bother with Ritalin because it's too short lasting, and I don't like the idea of taking it once every few hours.
right,
But but I have to deal with it for now and just try and manage my life alongside the meds.
right, yeah. What are some of the coping skills that you've learned that have helped you the most?
Oh, well, what I do is I use a whole bunch of different tools, what I call like the core tools.
Okay,
Um, so I would never ever live without a calendar, a diary, schedule planner. It's got to be something visual that I put on the walls, because that
okay,
way I can keep track of everything, and just things like phone apps. It's really life changing when you have like a system set up, I think.
yeah,
So that has been a big thing. But I mean, even so, sometimes with those things, it's not easy just to get the motivation that you need. You can't just always snap your fingers and have it appear out of nowhere. So you've got to try and
right.
actually. One thing I've learned is you have to find motivation. You have to look for it in order to feel it. You can't just sit there and wait for it to come to you.
Yeah, because that'll never happen.
What about you? Have you got any things that you do with helping?
Actually, no, I don't, and that's kind of that's probably why I still have a lot of issues. Is that I don't have any systems in place, and trying to find systems that work for me have been a big struggle because just because there's a system available doesn't necessarily you have to be able to implement it for it to work. And
Yeah,
I have a lot of trouble with adoption and implementation of
yeah.
systems. One of the ones that I worked with for a little while and then kind of stuck with here and there is a bullet journal.
Ah,
And
right, yeah.
it's helped mostly for me to organize my thoughts. Like I know that I wouldn't have done anything with a YouTube channel if I hadn't started using a bullet journal to organize thoughts and index them to where I can reference them back. But as far as like a daily plan, I don't know about you, but for me, I find that my day is so non-eventful that I don't really have anything to plan. I go to work and then after work, I just kind of hang out. I don't have a lot to do.
Well, it depends. I mean, if you want to do things, what I do is I keep a to-do list and I
Hmm.
try to work it into my calendar or write it down, say Saturday, such and such time, do this activity, so that I get around to doing it and I don't miss it. So I think it's really important to maybe try and find things to occupy your time that are productive so that you can learn, just like with the audiobooks. You can make the time every day, every night after work to learn something, or,
Hmm.
whatever it be, a hobby, spending time with the family, whatever.
Yeah, I've been trying to implement that. If I want to, let's say, if I want to work on a video or something, writing that down, and sometimes I get to it, sometimes I don't. And
Hmm.
one of the things that's helped me, and in not feeling, basically feeling like a failure, is recognizing that sometimes I'm not going to be able to get to that thing. So just because it's on the to-do list doesn't mean that it has to be done.
Yeah, of course. I mean, the to-do list is really something that you can prioritize. The cat is really eating your hair.
Yeah, sorry about that. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, what I do is I put them in a hierarchy of importance.
Yeah.
So number one would be like, pay the bills, something like that, because you can't not do it. But then at the bottom it would be like, I don't know, make a video or something, because it's not something that has to be done. I mean, this week I haven't posted a video and I'm feeling a bit guilty, but I've got one almost done. But it happens, sometimes life gets on top of you, so you got to
Mhm.
take extended period of time because I don't want to release a video that's going to be, um, you know, crappy or half-ass quality. So,
Right.
so it's okay to take your time on things that aren't really urgent, I think. As long as
Right.
it's on the list, as long as you're tracking it and you're reminded about it, it's all good.
Absolutely.
So how is the channel going?
It's coming along. It's brand new. I've only been doing it for a couple weeks now, and so um, I started off a little too strong. I tried. I had this ambition. Of course, we all have ambitions. I wanted to post one video per day,
That's
and
ambitious.
that's very ambitious. And when I'm trying to juggle just life all in, and you have ADHD, which causes things to go awry that you don't expect.
Yeah,
Uh, it it became too much. So I went ahead and went to posting just one video per week, and that's been a lot more sustainable to where I've actually got
yeah,
some videos lined up, and I have some that are scheduled to go out. Well, one of the things that I like to do is batch record. So I'll try and record several videos in one day, two
right.
to four videos in one day, and just set them up in a schedule.
Yeah,
That way I don't have to worry about them, and I don't have to worry. Oh man, I don't have a video this week. I got to get working on it,
mm.
because some weeks are more hectic than others, and you may not have the time.
Yeah. I mean, I totally know the feeling because it's pretty time consuming to make a video, especially if you want to
Yeah.
provide good information. And the thing
Right.
about people with ADHD is I find that they need to know the information straight away. So don't,
Yeah.
it can be hard because I stutter, I take my time to talk, so I got to do a lot of editing to
Same
get to the
here.
relevant points.
Same here.
So, but I'd rather do it, as you say, once a week and do a good job of it than
Yeah.
rush out poor quality content. It makes a difference.
Exactly.
Because I think those bullet journals you're on about, I've never tried that, but I think that that YouTuber, uh, How to ADHD, that girl,
Yeah.
she's done
Jessica.
a bit on that, isn't it? Yeah,
Yes, she has. Yeah.
she's got a great channel for it. She does it all herself, I
Oh,
think.
yeah. No, and she's unfortunately had some setbacks, but she
Oh,
had some help with her husband, and now I'm not sure who she's having help her. I think she's getting help from her community now.
Right.
Some of her community has pitched in help and in editing and stuff like that.
Yeah, because they're really professional, isn't it? I
Yeah,
imagine
she
it's a lot of
had an
work.
excellent job. I mean, if there was a pinnacle of what we could strive to be, that would be it. You know.
Mm. Yeah, it takes a lot of investment. That's the problem. And if you've got a full life, it's
Yeah.
just do the best you
Well,
can, really.
she does everything from researching, like medical journals and stuff like that. And I
Yeah.
couldn't get through reading one of those.
Yeah. Well, I know. I mean, I have to read a lot of academic stuff for my course, and it's hell. I don't read hardly
Oh
anything at all,
gosh.
but I just read the abstract and the conclusion, and that just tells me
Yeah,
most of what I need to know. So that's one way to do it.
that's good. Do you find? See, we tend to find tricks because the conventional way of just reading through something doesn't work for us.
Yeah.
For me, when I read, I have to know what I have to know, is there an answer I'm looking for? Because if I need to find an answer, I can find it. That's fine. But
Yeah.
if I need to just read something for the sheer sake of gaining whatever knowledge I can out of it, nothing sticks.
Yeah. I think we only retain about 10% of books anyway. That's to the neurotypical people. So for us, I mean,
Oh,
it's
really?
probably like 1%. Yeah. Um,
Yeah. Jeez.
I mean, did you ever read books as a child? Because I did a bit, but I
No.
found the older I got, I mean, I probably read about less than a handful of books in my entire life because I just can't.
Yeah.
It's
So,
a real effort.
yeah, same for me. I think I've, like you said, maybe a handful of books at the most in my
Mm,
entire life, and I have more of a history of trying to read a book and then not getting through it
mm,
than I do of actually completing a book.
yeah.
And that kind of built up over time to where learned experience tells you this ain't gonna work. So that's probably why I even medicated. I haven't tried to pick up a book and read through it.
Yeah, you've got to want to do it, haven't you? Because
Yeah,
even on the meds, I find, all right, yeah, I can focus, but I'm not particularly passionate about the subject.
right.
Um, so I've never been with novels, but even with movies, I find it hard unless it's an amazing movie or one of my favorites. I can't sit through a movie. So it expands into other areas.
See, for me, anything on a moving screen is my kryptonite. If it doesn't matter if it's a movie, a show, a commercial, it draws my attention, and I find that to be a big problem because if I'm trying to sit down and do something and there's a television on somewhere, my eyes keep going up to the television.
Yeah. It's the same with me and sort of being in a public setting. I'll be trying to
Mhm.
do something, and if somebody walks past, I'll
Yep,
always look up
always
every
look.
single time.
Yeah,
I just can't
yep,
help it.
yep. Same, yeah, same thing. If somebody walks in a door, you're always checking to see who it is.
Yeah, I just can't resist.
Yeah,
Oh, ADHD, eh?
it makes for a fun lifestyle.
So,
You said you got diagnosed later in life, right?
yeah, about 4 years ago,
Yeah. Okay.
and I only went to get the test because I started my undergrad and I just couldn't read to save my
Mm,
life. And I just thought, this isn't normal. I mean, why are other people sailing through it? And it's for me, it's like running fingers down a chalkboard.
right. Right.
It's like painful to sit there and do the work. I mean, as I said before, I always felt like there was something a bit different about me, but this is what was gave me the initiative to go and get tested. And the funny
Yeah.
thing is, I never actually had an official diagnosis, but they said I have enough symptoms to get the medication because I'm
Huh.
not hyperactive, because I'm
Oh, I
inattentive.
see. Yeah.
Yeah, and of course they only recognize officially the classic ADHD. The inattentive type
Really?
is quite um, it's not really understood.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do. I feel like those of us that are inattentive, we we're kind of on a subset of our own because we don't fit the classic. We don't fit that classic hyperactive presentation.
Yeah, I mean, when I was in school, instead of getting up and running around the classroom and shouting and screaming, I'd stare out the window daydreaming. That was my thing.
Same here. Yeah, the open window was my downfall.
Yeah, I'd always get in trouble just for not paying attention.
Yeah,
I think there's 7 different types of ADHD now, apparently.
really. I hadn't heard.
Yeah, I think I heard that on some YouTube video, but it's pretty hard to find any decent information actually.
Yeah, I'm only familiar with the three. You know, the inattentive, hyperactive, impulsive, and combined.
Who knows? Maybe it's growing in the research fields.
Now, there's an interesting one that Dr. Russell Barkley brought up. That I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's called SCT or sluggish cognitive tempo.
Oh yeah, I've heard of that.
You have, okay.
Yeah.
That one had me worried for a little while, just because of explaining how lethargic and very sedentary, very spacey. I was like, wow, that's sounding like me. The only thing that makes me say no, that can't be, is that they tend to have problems with making a lot of mistakes. And I didn't tend to make a lot of mistakes. I wouldn't do my work, but when I did it, it was correct. Like back
Yeah.
in school. So I didn't have problems with making mistakes as much. And they also tend to be more they have slow reaction times.
Mm.
So that's when they test when they do a reaction test. People with ADHD tend to be they're consistently inconsistent, whereas
Yeah.
SCT seems to be consistently slower. And I would equate that that would have to transfer to motor movement as well. And
Right.
I tend to have, I used to have really good reflexes as a child.
Mm.
I used to be really athletic, and, uh, hand-eye coordination was good and things like that. So going, well, that I'm probably not SCT. So that's good because I don't really know much about it at all.
Yeah. I've heard of that slow cognitive information processing, and
Right.
I relate to that because
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I can actually feel it. It's almost like a sensation of the information comes at you, and then there's like this delay, much like this video is a bit of a delay,
Yeah,
you
exactly.
know. And I've had coworkers, say, come on faster, or they tell me I'm not doing something quickly enough, and it's not that I'm not, in my mind I'm doing it all right, but it's, you kind of forget again the working memory that fails to keep in real time. It's like 1 or 2 seconds behind. Do you know what I mean? So there's that kind of
Yeah,
slower processing.
right. I tend to find I have a problem with that when speaking. It tends to come out where, like right now, I have trouble searching for my words, and I can tell in my speech there's a lot of stopping. It's small
Yeah,
pauses, but it's not fluent.
I often, when I'm talking, it's sort of like long pauses in between words.
Yeah,
I'm doing pretty all right today,
yeah,
but
same here.
I don't know why I'm not on my meds. Maybe I'm just hyper focused on this conversation.
We tend to perform well in novel situations,
Yeah.
which is one of the reasons why I forget the type of test it is, but neuropsych testing. Neuropsych testing is where they have you do all the visual spatial stuff, and you know uh,
Mm.
just a battery of tests. We actually tend to do really well during those because it's new and it's novel, and we already have this idea that we want to perform well, so we kind of hype ourselves up on doing it. And so we'll actually do well at those tests, which suggests that we don't have ADHD, and that's one of the reasons why
Mm.
they're saying that that's a horrible way to try and test for ADHD, because it can't predict uh, it can't consistently predict whether someone has ADHD or not. You can't diagnose them.
Yeah, good point. Because that hyperfocus is often unintentionally selective, and it's not because
Right.
we are uh, consistently inconsistent. But when it comes to things that really matter to us, I think that's when it kicks in, and it can become quite difficult to determine whether that person's actually ADHD or not because they seem so capable in that moment. But it depends on the situation entirely, really.
Right. And I find that's one of the biggest troubles with it is that there are times when we can perform and we can really shine at times, and we seem like it's almost like we showed ourselves to be capable of something, and people see that and they'll go, well, if you could do it that time, why can't you do it all the time?
Yeah, it doesn't
And
work like that.
it doesn't work like that, and that's got to be one of the hardest things to explain. It's got to be one of the hardest things to explain, because we don't even know why it worked out.
Yeah,
It's like it just did. It was like a happy accident, and because of that, we become afraid of success sometimes. When we do succeed, we don't know how to take it, because we go, wow, that must have been a fluke. There's no way
yeah,
I did that on my own. So I feel like I just made a video about this, how we tend to get doubly hit by imposters, where when
yeah.
somebody recognizes an achievement that we made, we just we shy away from it. We don't want to acknowledge it. We kind of want to pretend like it didn't happen.
Yeah, because I think we're so conditioned to think that we're incompetent, that we are too inconsistent to ever effectively follow through with something that it
Hmm.
does hamper our belief in ourselves. So when it does happen, it's quite flabbergasting, and we just think, "Wow, was that really me?" And
Right.
it can be
Yeah.
quite hard to believe. Yeah, because it's obviously rare as well for us.
Right. Yeah. We wish we knew what we did right so we could do it again.
Yeah, it's just that magic formula doesn't really exist, does it? It just
I,
comes whenever it wants.
yeah. Exactly. And that in and of itself can be frustrating, because you ask yourself the same question that everybody else asks: if I can do this time, why can't I always do this when I need to?
Absolutely. Oh, by the way, there's another app, another audiobook. It's about ADD. It's by George Sash, Adult ADD Solution. That's more
I'm gonna
for
write that
inattentive.
down.
Yeah, I'm loving Audible at the moment. It's just my go-to learning place.
For me, it's always been YouTube, because I learn better through audio and video.
Yeah,
But I mean, I can learn through audio just as well.
yeah, that visual aspect is important because I think we learn better visually, kind of
Yeah.
like children in a way. Not to be
Mhm.
patronizing, but I just think this is why I think How to ADHD's videos are so popular, because it's just so perfectly constructed for the ADHD mind that it's one
Right.
shot, next shot. It's really appeals to the ADHD mind very visually.
What was that book again? I'm writing it down.
Adult ADD Solution. And this guy has actually got ADD himself, and he's a therapist.
Okay.
So fair play to him to achieve that is phenomenal.
Yeah. Are you familiar with? Do you listen to any podcasts?
Uh, I like Joe Rogan's podcasts because they're so crazy. But that's about
I've
it.
never listened to him.
What about you?
There's a really great podcast by Eric Tivers. It's called ADHD Rewired, and it's primarily adult ADHD. And he's a licensed clinical social worker, so he does therapy and stuff like that. But he's an
Oh,
ADHD coach. He actually
What's
has
his
a
name?
coaching program. Eric Tivers, Tivers.
Okay, thanks.
He's got a great podcast,
I'll check it out.
and he's got ADHD himself, so it's coming from a point of knowledge that from experience.
Yeah, so he knows what it's all about.
Exactly. Have you ever considered ADHD coaching?
Um, I don't know if it exists in the UK, but I have. It has crossed my mind. I don't think I could afford it at this moment in my life.
Yeah, same here.
Maybe a bit in the future because I'm just a student right now. So maybe
Hmm.
in the future I might consider it. Yeah.
Well, my understanding of most ADHD coaching is done via like Skype or
Yeah.
FaceTime or something along those lines. So it wouldn't have to be confined to your geographical area.
Yeah. That's really
But
handy.
it's
Yeah, I think as especially what it's like with ADHD people is that they might not turn up on time, so that problem is eradicated just by being online.
yeah,
So there's one advantage
right.
to it.
You can do it from home, so it's a lot easier.
Yeah, but I think you can probably hire private ones, but they'll probably cost a bomb.
Well, the ADHD coaching is only privatized. They don't have it's not covered by insurance of any kind.
Oh, right. Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, we've got the NHS over here. I mean, I've had NHS therapy or counselling, but I never really found it of any use. They just listen to you, and it's
Mm,
not enough, in my opinion. You need actual solutions, and half the time you have to wait for a very long time to get somebody really good, like a psychiatrist or psychologist.
that's what I've heard, and that's really a shame. I know sometimes depending on the insurance you have here in the states, it can be like that as well. But it's like for instance, my wife, we're trying to get her psychiatrist for anxiety, and
Right.
you know her first appointment wasn't isn't for like 2 months.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah, if you've got anxiety, that can really be quite a pain.
it really is. Yeah,
Do you think your ADHD affects your relationship with your wife at all?
it did. Before we knew what was going on, it really did.
Yeah.
Mostly because I looked like I was just being lazy and not doing, you know, one of the hardest, one of the places that I still have the hardest time is with my sleep management, and because
Yeah.
of that, me waking up in the morning is absolute hell. Um,
Mm.
I my wife literally has to drag me out of bed
Oh
because
dear, dear.
I won't hear an alarm. Like I don't ignore the alarm, I just don't hear it.
Oh wow.
So if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't have a job because
Oh shit.
I'd have been late and fired a long time ago.
Oh man.
Yeah,
Yeah, a bit of luck in that way. I'm the opposite to you. I'm a very light sleeper. I find it hard to get to
really.
sleep. A feather could drop and I'll wake up half the time. But
Wow.
yeah, I mean, oddly enough, my father is a very heavy sleeper, and there could be an earthquake and he would he wouldn't wake up. But
Yeah, that's
you
how
know,
I.
but no, my mother's side, I'm just much more sensitive mentally.
Mm,
So yeah, it can be different for different people. But
absolutely, yeah. Yeah, that's the thing. There's no one size fits all for this either.
yeah, um, but like with waking up, I know the feeling, especially going to school and stuff like that. I just couldn't do it. It would be like the worst feeling in the world.
Hmm.
And what I do now is I just put my phone alarm on the other side of the room, so I have to get out of bed to turn it off.
Yeah,
At least I can hear it, I suppose.
that's good. Yeah.
Yeah, I've had relationship issues as well with.
Oh, really? How so?
Uh, I think things like a low frustration tolerance and just overthinking things
Hmm.
and taking things too personally um, just caused me to react without thinking a lot.
Yeah.
So not it hasn't really affected me in the way of seeming like I wasn't making an effort. I mean, I have at times been complacent. It's definitely a thing, but for me, it was more about just not being able to regulate myself.
Right.
But I think you get better over time. I think with practice.
Yeah. Yeah. I know that a lot of people tend to have it really can affect the relationship, and it really depends too. It depends on the partner as well. You know, I'm
Yeah,
very fortunate to have my wife be so understanding and as she is, but not everybody's wife is that receptive to ADHD, even when it's known what's causing the issues. You know, they still might expect the person to, get their stuff together regardless. You know.
yeah. I mean, you often see on those groups people posting about their relationship problems and how people don't understand where they're coming from, and
Hmm.
it's very common because the partner isn't always receptive to how the other person operates.
Right.
And yeah, I haven't been as fortunate as you. I mean, in that sense, because oftentimes I keep on picking the wrong people, and
Mm,
hasn't they haven't really understood, and I've not understood them either. So
yeah.
it's a lot of it is luck.
It really is. I equate it to luck and nothing else.
Hmm. Any other vices? Do you have any like problems controlling yourself with certain things?
Well, for the longest time, uh, I actually had been a smoker, and I was found out later on that nicotine can actually help treat ADHD, and because of
Wow.
it, we're highly prone to tobacco use. Yeah, in
Wow, I
fact,
didn't realize.
they've been trying to find a way to use nicotine to treat ADHD to come up with a new medication. But they found that if they remove the component of nicotine that is addictive, it also removes the help that it would provide for ADHD.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah,
I had a bit of a phase a few years ago where I got into that whole vaping thing
yeah,
with e-cigarettes, and I'd become so hooked on it that I do it as soon as I open my eyes in the morning. I take a puff,
yeah,
and I just thought after about 6 months or a year, I just thought this is just silly. I need to just stop now.
yeah.
And
Well, it's good that you're.
yeah, yeah, it's the same with other things like with alcohol. I can't really do it because I just don't know when to stop when it starts sometimes.
I was afraid of alcohol for the longest time because that's one area that my mother struggles with. She drinks every day, every night,
Oh, right.
and I didn't want to become like her, and so I was very wary of alcohol. I didn't drink anything until I was 21, and once I did, I was glad to see that I was able to control my consumption. It didn't
Yeah.
take over, and my mother has talked about how one drink for her can never be one drink.
Mm, know
So
the
if
feeling.
she yeah, but for me it can be, and it's been that way ever since. So I can drink socially if I need to, and things like that.
Yeah, yeah. Quite fortunate there. I have a group of friends that I don't really see much anymore because that's all they ever want to do. Here in the UK, it's
Mm,
very big drinking culture,
yeah,
and it's unfortunate because it's just so destructive. And I'd go out, and I always get drawn towards the cigarettes and stuff, and I just thought I
right.
have to get away from it because I feel like in that moment I'm not in control. I'm like a puppet on a string.
Oh yeah,
Um, yeah, it's pretty powerful.
Right. Well, that's kind of how I was with, or how I am with tobacco. I've switched from smoking tobacco to an oral tobacco. I use snus now, and
Right.
it's easier to deal with, and I don't have, at least don't have to worry about lung cancer.
Yeah.
But it's
Well,
hard. It's hard to break yourself of those habits.
mm, especially spending habits. Do you find you have
Oh
problems with that?
gosh.
I'm so
I
bad.
I just filed for bankruptcy a couple months ago.
Oh God, sorry to hear
Yeah,
that.
that's how bad it got for me. Um,
Wow.
yeah, a lot of credit card debt. It's really easy to get a hold of credit cards, and those are just all bad news for anybody with ADHD.
Yeah, I've never owned one. I've only ever used debit.
Good. Well,
Um,
even then, it's easy to run out of money.
yeah, because I just find that I just get the card and go beep beep. It just
Yep.
it's so easy to do, and I just don't keep track of it enough, anywhere near enough that I should do.
Same here.
But I try to get. I've downloaded an app called Yolt, and that just it's like a visual app, where you just shows you all your expenses, things like that. So I'm really trying to get into the visual apps and things to remind me these days.
Yeah.
Because you have to discipline. You have to treat yourself like a child in a way.
Right. And that's hard to do because
Mm.
we spend all of our childhood wanting to be adults so we could do what we
Yeah,
want. And then when you can do what you want, if you're not making the best decisions, it can be really detrimental.
yeah. I mean, the amount of times I've gone overdrawn and I've had to have family bail me out. It's just I feel like it makes me feel like completely irresponsible, like a teenager
Mhm.
with no boundaries. But it's a lot
Right.
of it is a skill.
Right. Yeah. That's something that the medication wouldn't fix. It would definitely
Mm.
have to come from reprogramming yourself to one, like you said, keep track of your spending. Because I think that there's a couple different ways that we can get in trouble. One is impulsive spending, where we just buy anything and everything. The other is just not realizing how much of our money we've actually spent on small little things,
Yeah,
and it gets away from us.
yeah. Because every time we do that, it piles up, doesn't it? It's like dirty
Yeah,
laundry,
right.
and because it kind of reminds me of that concept of time blindness, where you
Yeah,
don't really witness it happening. And
right.
it's the same with other things like money spending. You just don't really have a concept or a sense of. I don't have a sense of urgency, which is
Hmm.
why I leave things to the last minute and I don't really keep track of things consistently because you don't really experience that feeling of urgency as much. I think that's what
Right.
causes it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, what do you think your goals are in the next few years
The next
in
few
terms
years.
in terms of your journey to well-being?
Oh,
Well, in life, whatever.
well, actually, it's kind of funny. That's what my channel is about. My journey to wellness. And so my goals would be to essentially to live a more normalized life. What I know we're not supposed to use the word normal, but I have a hard time finding a different name for it. But
It's fine.
yeah, but
Uh,
most people know what I'm talking about when I say it. Just a normal life. I want to have a house and kids and a car for me and my wife.
mm,
And I think the path to getting there is really managing these issues that I have with my ADHD, to especially with the spending. Um, when you spend your money, you don't have anything to save. Without savings, it's hard to plan for the future.
just take that inspiration of little baby steps and just making the time
Yeah,
to allotting a time slot for those activities for you to see the progress is key.
that really is, and that's something that I've also struggled with, but I'm becoming better at doing. Is acknowledging when those steps are made, when you do have a little bit of a victory, and you do something that you you otherwise would have passed it off. You would have thought, oh, no big deal. I did something that I was supposed to. I paid my bill on time. Woohoo! Yeah, everyone's
Mm.
supposed to do that, you know. But
Mm.
I think that we have to allow ourselves to take some recognition for ourselves in that moment, because
Yeah,
yeah, we did pay our bill on time.
yeah,
That's
it's a big thing.
something that we normally wouldn't do. So
Mm.
yeah, acknowledge yourself for that. Give yourself that pat on the back, and that positive reinforcement is supposed to help us do it again. Because beating ourselves up, which is what we've done all of our lives, that didn't work.
Yeah, totally agree. It's a great mindset to have because you have to allow that small victory to inspire you to do the other things, even though it might be a normal necessity to pay that bill or whatever it may be.
Right,
That should be used as inspiration to say, hey, if I can do that, then I can do these things as well. If it's just planned.
right. Yeah. So
So,
some of the goals that I have is finding a way to organize myself. That I think that I struggle with that a lot. So
mm,
trying to get myself to a point to where I feel organized, and I can have a day planned out and
yeah,
execute that day.
yeah. I notice whenever I have set the day up in advance and I follow it through, on my calendar, or I set an alarm on my phone. Once you actually go through and that whole day,
Mhm.
you just feel so accomplished, and it just makes you. I find that it has like this domino
Right.
effect where you just think, okay, it's like a snowball effect, and it carries on.
Yeah.
So you gotta just strike while the iron is hot and keep up the momentum. It's all about momentum.
Yeah. Absolutely. Because momentum kind of goes in both ways. It's funny you mentioned that, because we have to be careful of not getting in a pattern of negative thoughts too.
Yeah,
You
it
know,
goes both
if
ways.
we do slip, the domino effect can go the opposite way, to where we just compound ourselves with all these negative thoughts and reminding ourselves of our past failures, and
Mm.
that's that's very counterproductive to moving forward.
Yeah, that's why I think it's better just to make the time in your to-do list to like listen to something positive in an audiobook, just to
Hmm.
brush the negativity to one side and only focus on the positive things. Don't, the other negative things don't really have any place in your life, so get rid of them.
Right.
So, is that all good then?
I believe so. This has been
Well,
fun. I'm glad that we finally got it working.
yeah. Yeah, thank you again so much for joining me on the chat. It's going to be the start of something good, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I hope that you get more people that come on and are able to share their stories and their struggles and triumphs. I think that this can be very encouraging to people, seeing that other people do struggle, even if they do have treatment, even if they do have help. We're still vulnerable. We're still human.
Absolutely. Let's hope we can give them a voice. So, yeah, let's wrap it up then. Thanks very much.
Yeah, definitely. Stuart, it
Yeah,
was really nice meeting you and talking to you.
yeah. Thanks, Daniel. Guys, you watching? This is Daniel. Check out his channel, Journey to Wellness. Check out his channel. It's got some very interesting content on there. Some interesting different scenarios and interesting information. So here we are. Thanks a lot, Daniel.
Thank you.